Hi, my name's Joseph. Welcome to the Eclectic Philatelist. This episode is going to be about one of my favorite animals of all time, the fox. We're going to take a look at foxes on stamps and foxes on postcards, as well as a little bit of an intro as to why I picked foxes, why I find them so beautiful and so fascinating. So let's begin with a little bit of a discussion about why I like foxes and why they became such a big part of my topical collections. I live in Wisconsin, and in Wisconsin we have a variety of wildlife, and here's a little guide that I have of Wisconsin wildlife. And in here it does show that we have both the red fox and the gray fox in Wisconsin. And that always piqued my interest to collect things about animals that are native to my area so I can see the animals in the wild whenever I can, if possible. I always enjoy that. Also, the town that I live in, Waukesha, Wisconsin, is, shall I say, a little bit fox obsessed. The photo that I've got up on the screen is of the river, and I live in an apartment that overlooks the river here in Waukesha. And you can see that there's a little stone statue of a fox by the river. And these little stone statues are on the bridges overlooking the Fox River here in town. So they're always a subject of curiosity for newcomers. It's like, oh, it's the Fox River, so you have a fox statue by the river. But we have fox statues in other locations besides just over the river. For example, here is the public library in Waukesha, and it's a nice library, you can tell by the picture, but if you look closer, and I'll put up a closer zoom of this library photo, you can see that there is another statue of a fox. So we tend to be a little bit fox obsessed. Now, these stone statues are throughout the city at various locations, but we also have other types of statues of foxes that maybe aren't exactly anatomically correct fox statue, but let's take a look at some of those. There's a shopping center here in town, the Fox River Valley Fox Shopping Center, and scattered throughout the shopping center area are some of these statues of foxes. Let's take a look at some of those. Like those statues that are around the shopping center, just part of our fox mindset here in Waukesha. Of course, those weren't replicas of real fox. Here's a photo of a real red fox. Now, this one has quite an interesting story, a little bit on the sad side, but with a happy ending. And I'll wait till the end of the video to show you more pictures of this particular fox and talk about his story. Recently in my collecting, I've been adding postcards to my stamp collection and collection of covers on whatever topic I'm interested in. So I'd like to start here with 3 postcards that I've recently acquired. And the first one I really like because it's just, I think, a beautiful picture of a red fox. And it happens to be my favorite of the various species of fox that are throughout the world. And I like this particular postcard. It was one I acquired on Hip Postcard. Some of you may be familiar with Hip Stamp. It's a place to buy and sell stamps. Hip Postcard has quite a wide variety of postcards for sale as well. The next postcard is an Arctic fox. And this photo of the Arctic fox is the postcard depicting a fox in his winter coat. Arctic foxes do change their coat. They shed their very thick white coat come the spring as temperatures warm, and they get a brownish or brownish gray coat throughout the warmer months. The next postcard is one, again, it's more of an artist rendition of a fox, and I like this one also. And I put that one in here because sometimes with collecting a topic of an animal like foxes on stamps, you can collect ones that depict real photographs of the animal or artists' renditions of the animal. So again, these are 3 postcards, 3 variations of the types of things you can collect on postcards to add to your collection. Now, starting to collect a topical collection like this of foxes, and again, I have an interest in collecting a wide variety of material, both postcards and covers, as well as stamps. And part of the way that I start in the beginning to keep this organized here is to use a 3-ring binder. And at the first page of the binder here, of this section, I have the topical checklist for the subject foxes. And this topical checklist is from the American Topical Association. And I always urge everyone to check out their website and join that organization. It's great. And they do provide these topical checklists here that can help you with your collection and see what's available out there. And in this case, it was updated recently, July 28th of last year of 2022. And they have 485 listings for foxes on stamps. And then as I begin the collection, the other pages are just stock sheets where I may keep my covers, for example, or I'll keep some larger sheets of stamps and postcards as well as individual stamps on these stock sheets. So that's kind of how the collection gets organized in the beginning. Later on, I may change it out and subdivide it a little bit because with a collection like this, I might organize it by species of fox, or I might organize it by photos that are realistic photos of the animal on stamps or postcards, and then artist renditions of foxes, and then maybe more cartoonish depictions of the animal found on stamps or postcards or covers. So lots of different ways you can organize your collection here. And again, I urge you to find a checklist that can really help you find the variety of stamps you can look for when you're ready to start purchasing. First, let's take a look at a couple of first day covers that I purchased recently. I really like these 2 covers. They're in mint condition. They do have stamps that depict foxes, which is of course part of the idea here of the first day of issue of these particular covers. But the graphics on the cover themselves are just gorgeous. I really like these. I think it really enhances any collection to get something like this, especially in such excellent condition. And I'm probably going to be looking for additional covers for foxes as well, and keep that in part of my collection. Both of these are from Capex in Canada back in a few years, and you can take a closer look at these and see the stamps that are used. And the graphics, again, I think are some of the best graphics I've seen, or the most beautiful to me at least, on covers depicting foxes. Now, with a collection as large as this, I mean, topical collections for foxes can, you're getting hundreds of different stamps. Like the topical checklist showed 485 stamps that were on that checklist currently, things like that. I'm just going to show a variety of different stamps depicting foxes and talk about some of the different ways that the animal has been depicted on stamps. So these first 3 that I'm going to put up here show a little bit of different variations on how the animals can be depicted. The first one shows a red fox in more of a natural environment in a background. It just gives you an idea of the anatomy of the animal with the fluffy tail and the being a red fox, the white patch underneath the throat and chest, and the type of ears and snout of the animal and the black feet. The next one is just a gorgeous one. It's a different style of depiction of the animal, again, a red fox. And I think this one is just one of the more beautiful stamps in the collection as well. But it's a little bit different style, but I really like this style. It doesn't necessarily depict an animal in the real world of natural habitat, but I think it is an absolutely gorgeous stamp to add to the collection. The next photo is a pair of stamps, and again shows you differences of what you can expect when you're starting to find foxes on stamps. And these are almost more cartoonish in a way, or artist renditions of the animal. And foxes, you'll find as you start collecting, have often been used in fairy tales and stories for children. And so you'll find a lot of stamps that do kind of depict that theme and kind of use the animal to state the type of fairy tale or the story for the fairy tale, or a cartoon image or something like that. But these stamps show 3 different ways of depicting foxes on stamps. The next 2 stamps I think are good examples showing the anatomy of one of the species of foxes that are out there. And in this case, it's the red fox. The first stamp is showing a cub, or sometimes called a kit, a very young fox. But you can see, besides the coloring, the shape of the ears, the hearing is a very prominent sense for foxes, and the snout and the eyes on this one I think are great as well. And the next stamp also shows a head-on view from the paws to the top of the head, and again is a good example of the anatomy and coloring of a fox, and again in this case a red fox. But there are many different types of species of fox around the world. They're found on every continent except Antarctica, and sometimes the natural habitat of the fox determines its physical characteristics. The next 3 stamps show a different species, or a couple of different but related species of fox. Since foxes are found around the world, there are foxes that are found in desert areas or very warm, very hot climates, such as northern Africa. And in these species, you can see that one of the most prominent features are the ears. Now, these species of foxes, and there's different species here, the Blandford fox and a sand fox, and so forth. And the large ears here serve a couple of purposes, of course, to understand their environment and to be aware of both prey and predators. The ears are quite large and have to be able to give them a lot of information. But also the ears that large sort of act as a cooling device, where they can dissipate heat through those very large ears to help them stay cool. These species of fox are quite a bit smaller than the red fox that we have typically in North America. They can be half the size of a red fox, or actually sometimes quite a bit smaller in some of these species of desert area foxes. They also tend to have a lot of fur on the bottom of their feet to help pad and protect their feet from the hot sand. Another format that you'll find as you start a collection of foxes on stamps are stamps in blocks, say a block of 4, as well as full sheets of stamps that depict foxes. Here's an example of a block of 4 from Tajikistan. I'm not sure of the pronunciation of that, where all 4 stamps are showing different scenes of foxes. And I really like these because the scenes are each very different, and they give a good picture of the animals here. Also shown next is the sheet of the latest U.S. stamps that were dedicated to the red fox as well. To be honest, I'm not quite sure how much I like these particular stamps, but let me know in the comments below if you've got any opinion of these new U.S. stamps shown on this sheet. And then, of course, in the collection, sometimes you'll come across stamps that the photo of the animal on the stamp is absolutely gorgeous and you really like it. However, the downside is that about half the stamp is not part of the photo. Here's one that kind of gives an example of that. Love the photo, but the rest of the stamp, I don't know, I think they could have used more of a photo and a little less space for text. And again, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes you'll come across stamps depicting foxes that are related to fairy tales or children's stories or cartoon characters. And sometimes these can be a nice addition to your collection of that topic as well, if you're inclined to include this type of stamp in your collection. Of course, you could stick with just stamps that depict the real animal, but sometimes I kind of like some of these stamps. I like the two that I'm showing here on the screen. I think they're just kind of playful and colorful and can kind of add a different type of theme to the collection of stamps. And there's quite a few of these out there. There was an awful lot of folk tales about foxes because foxes are always said to be very clever, which is how we always get the phrase that this person has been outfoxed, for example. Also, you're going to come across stamps that can help you add to an explanation of the life of the fox or the life of the animal that you're collecting. For example, sometimes if you're going to perhaps exhibit, you might want to have an area that discusses the predators that are one of the great or the most common enemies of the fox. In this case, here's a stamp showing a bird of prey attacking a fox, and that's something you could look for and kind of add and group to your collection or to an exhibit. Another area that you might look for in stamps, I mentioned earlier that Arctic foxes change their coat as the seasons change, and you can look for stamps that depict that certain species of fox and how it might change in their coloration throughout the year. So this set of stamps does show the Arctic fox in its full winter coat and then in its summer coloring. So that's sort of a brief overview of the type of material that you could collect for a topical collection of foxes. There's, again, a wide variety of species of fox around the world. So I encourage you, if you do collect this, to check out as many different species as you can find and different types of things. Like I said, there's things that could show the anatomy of the animal, or stamps or postcards that may have a more cartoonish image of an animal that can be related to fairy tales or stories. So a lot of variety in this type of a collection. Again, there's also, of course, covers and postcards. So if you do collect foxes on stamps, let me know in the comments below, or send me a message or something, and let me know what type of fox stamps you collect. Now, at the beginning of this, I did show a photo of a real red fox, and I want to get back to that and kind of end this video with this particular animal's story. Quite a number of years ago, I was volunteering at a local Humane Society animal shelter, and I was working with cat adoptions at the time. But that shelter has a wildlife rehabilitation hospital, and the wildlife rehab hospital staff had gotten a call that a fox had been injured in a city park. And this was in a city park right on the shores of Lake Michigan, where there's a number of people and children play and all of this kind of stuff. And sadly and quite horribly, the incident was that a fox had been caught in a steel jaw trap that someone had put out in a city park. I don't know if they ever caught the person that did that. It was, of course, a highly illegal and very cruel thing to do, but this fox had its right front leg crushed by this, or broken by this trap. Fortunately, the rehab department had sent people down there, and they recovered the animal and brought it back to the rehabilitation hospital. And with the expertise of a veterinary surgeon that volunteered her time to work on the animal, the fox's leg was repaired, and it went through quite a long period of getting its health back, and then a little bit of rehab so it could use the leg again. And then gradually, as the bandages and the cast came off and the animal was getting its strength back and was eating well and determined to be healthy, for a period of time it was set up in an outdoor cage so it could get used to the outdoor weather environment again. And the happy part of the story is that eventually this fox fully recovered, had full use of his leg again, and we were able to release him back into the wild at an undisclosed location, a habitat that would be very good for the fox. So that's it for this episode. If you like this episode, of course, please click the like button and please subscribe to the channel. And again, if you do collect foxes on stamps, please let me know in the comments below. There's also a Facebook group for the Eclectic Philatelist. And as I accumulate more material, occasionally I'll post the latest additions to my collection up on there. And feel free to join that group and post your photos of what you collect as well. So as always, thanks very much for watching and happy collecting.